In this video, we're going to review the distributive property. The distributive property, if you remember, happens when I have a number, usually in front of a set of parentheses, and I have two numbers either added or subtracted. The distributive property says that I will basically take the number in front and distribute it to the first and to the second, or however many items there are within the parentheses. And I will multiply because right now I have the A times the B plus the C. So I need to distribute A times B plus A times C. So, an example, if I have 3 times x squared plus 2x minus 1, I'm going to take the 3, distribute it to get 3x squared. 3 times 2x, keeping the plus, would be 6x. And then 3 times 1, keeping the minus sign, would be minus 3. So this is how I basically distribute. One caution with the distributive property is be careful with the negative sign. So if, for example, I have negative 3 times x squared minus 4x plus 1, I need to make sure I distribute a negative. So this would become negative 3x squared. A negative 3 times basically a negative 4 will become plus 12x, and a negative 3 times positive 1 will become a negative 3, which we normally write as minus 3, okay, as opposed to doing plus and negative 3. Where this comes into play, or what this gets a little bit tricky, happens particularly with the order of operations. So if I do 2 plus 4, make that 2 minus 4, times 3x minus 2. Okay. What I would encourage you to do is think about this as plus a negative 4. So I have 2 plus, and then if I distribute this, I get a negative 12x, and then I distribute this again, it will become plus 8. I then can combine like terms, okay? Just as a reminder, each term is separated by a addition or subtraction sign. So 2 would be a term, negative 12x would be a term, and 8 would be a term. Keep in mind, I want to combine what's similar. So keep what's alike. 2 and 8 are both constants. I cannot combine them with the 12x because there's a variable of an x here that doesn't match with the 8 and the 2. So normally we write variables first, so negative 12x, and then plus 10 would be how I simplify it. So two things going on here. Okay, the first thing is to make sure that this subtraction sign becomes plus a negative, okay, adding a negative, or adding an opposite, and then I distribute that, making sure that my signs match up. It's a negative and a positive, which is why this will end up being a negative. And then a negative and a negative would end up being a positive. The other thing we're going to be looking at, particularly on the following slides, is this idea of combining what the like terms are. So, once again, okay, if I give you a strand of values, so let's take, for example, I gave you something like 4x squared minus 6x minus 6x squared. Let's move this out of here, the way for right now, plus 3. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. We have basically 4 terms, 4x squared, 6x, 6x squared, and 3. Our constant is the number by itself, which would be the 3, okay, where there is no variable. Okay. When I begin to look at like terms, I notice I have a 4x squared and a negative 6x squared. These are what are called the like terms, okay, because they both have the x squared. I can't combine it with the x, okay, because the x isn't being squared. The variables have to match up exactly in what the letters are and what the exponents are. To combine these, I'm going to basically take a look at the coefficients, which would be 4 and negative 6. So what this means, if I want to combine these like terms, okay, coefficients are just the numbers in front. So if I want to combine the like terms, I have to think about it as 4x squared minus 6x squared. What I'm going to basically do is use the reverse of this distributive property, okay, and just concentrate on pulling the coefficients together, the 4 minus the 6, and I'm going to be multiplying that by x squared. So I call this the reverse of the distributive property because if I was to multiply by x squared, I would get 4x squared minus 6x squared. And then I'm just left with what's 4 minus 6? Well, it's going to be negative 2. So I am left with negative 2x squared, and then followed by the minus 6x, and then the plus 3 at the end. Okay, so hopefully this has been a good review so far. First topic to mention is this whole idea of mental math. For example, if I wanted to know what 3 times $1.99 was, what I would actually think of this as is 3 times 2 minus basically a cent, $2 minus a cent. So I would take $1.99, rewrite it as 2 minus 1 cent. Could distribute, 3 times 2 is 6. So thinking it's about $6, but then knowing that I would have to subtract then the 3 cents. So I would get my final amount of $5.97. So this is one example of using mental math. Let's say I wanted to know what 4 times 3.06 was. Okay, I can do it in my head. It's going to be 12.24. Okay, how did I get this? I thought of it as 4 times 3 plus 600ths. So if I multiply 4 times 3, I get 12. And then 4 times 0.06. If I think about it in terms of what's 4 times 6, I would get 24. And knowing that I have 2 decimal places allows me to put the decimal place there. This gives me my answer of 1224. So this is mental math. This is just a simple example, some simple examples of how the distributive property actually makes math a little bit more quicker and able to do in our head. So just a little example. Hopefully this has been a good review for you of the distributive property.